Alright. Hey guys, what's up? It's Kyle here. Doing what I promised I was going to do since last night, and let's do a review on the greatest rivalry, Shawn Michaels Bret Hart DVD 3-disc set. I just finished watching it, the documentary portion of the 3-disc set. I'll watch the other two later. So before I get into it, I'm just going to do a, like you said, tutorial of the covering. So here you just have a covering of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels face to face. Nothing special on the back. I got some pictures of them in some of their matches. On the inside, have some more pictures. I don't know if you can see them or not. Hopefully you can. And then you have here which shows you the contents of the disc. Disc 1 is the interview with Michael and Bret. The second disc is the match with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels matches as both in the tag team division and both their single careers. And then the third disc is their induction, both men's induction ceremonies at the Hall of Fame, and when they reconcile with one another on the January 4th edition of Raw. So before I get into it, I must say I really like the covering of the case and stuff. It's nothing special. It's just plain. It just has greatest rivalries, and it just has a picture of Michaels and Bret, squaring off eye to eye. Nothing really special, but I like it. I kind of like the way the covering is, at least, because it kind of reminds me, kind of like a throwback to how the old, WWF pay-per-views would be on VHS. How they would have, the pictures of certain wrestlers or the two headlining wrestlers of the pay-per-view on the front cover. Just really nothing special. So I kind of like I really like the basic artwork of this covering disc set, because I think this is kind of like a nice old throwback to the how the way the 90s pay-per-view DVDs looked, or VHSs. So on to the interview. This was an in-depth interview with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and the interviewer being Jim Ross, which I thought was a really good choice. Jim Ross interviewing both men and really talking about how both Bret and Shawn started up in wrestling, and how they go down from starting up into how they got into the business to being successful tag team wrestlers, to their single careers, the Montreal Screwjob, all the way to current up to present day. First off, I really have to say that this was a really nice, well put together documentary, I guess you want to say, between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Really nicely done, a really heartfelt, unscripted environment that they give you here in this set, and just a lot of things that they go down and talk about, from when Bret was talking about how he, when he first saw Shawn coming in, him and Marty Jannetty as a tag team first coming in, that they were great workers, but a lot of the other veterans really didn't care for Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, because they kind of had this young boy, pretty boy, arrogant attitude, kind of like thing. But because Marty Jannetty and Michaels had such great chemistry and were great in the ring, people learned how to just somewhat to, I guess, put up with them, although they had bad attitudes really. But after that, you're going from that to Shawn Michaels saying that it wasn't until when Bret Hart won the WWE Championship from Ric Flair that's when he started to look at it and think, okay, well, hey, and it clicked to him that, hey, if Bret Hart could win a championship like this, and he's a small guy, then there's hope for me and other guys that are my size, saying Bret being the world champion, the head of the company. And he goes on from that to their match, their Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12, and they go into that and the details of that, and they say that the match that they had at WrestleMania 12, was that the whole thing afterwards and how it happened. You know, Bret Bret going into it, Bret felt that he didn't have a problem with Shawn. He didn't have a problem in giving the championship to Shawn, but he didn't like the way how senior management treated him leading up to that moment. He said because he felt that when he won the championship, I think around that time, I think that was Bret Hart's fourth title reign, if memory serves me right. That during this title reign that he had, that he felt that senior management or the officials were pretty much just making him a title holder, saying that, you're only holding this belt just to give over to Shawn, the guy that we really want. And how he said he felt like, although he was the one carrying the championship belt, he felt that they were treating Shawn more like, the champion, the guy, even though he wasn't even holding, the actual title belt to represent that. So, he says, so going into WrestleMania 12, he didn't have any type of animosity or anything towards Shawn, and, he even told Shawn, and him and both Shawn agreed, how they were gonna, how they planned everything out during that entire match, from every last move for move, and everything else, and how they were the ones that planned the sudden death penalty, where that must be a winner, when the time had expired in the 1 hour time limit, and how Bret was, going to be upset and mad, and he goes backstage and pissed off and stuff, and shuts the door in the cameraman's face. They said that both men admitted that they planned this for something big, and a lot of people in the back, not just fans, but a lot of people in the back, as far as the wrestlers, thought that Shawn and Bret actually had legitimate beef with each other, and and Bret's like telling his brother Owen, don't tell anyone, this is great, that we're pulling this off. So long story short, Bret takes some time off from WrestleMania 12, and his whole thing was that when he comes back with Shawn, that they'll pick up where they left off, but at that following year's WrestleMania. But he said, when he came back, he kind of got thrown a curveball, because when he came back, they told him that he was going to work in a program with Stone Cold. And so, he said he didn't have a problem working with Austin, but, his whole thing was to, help Shawn, get Shawn even more credibility as a champion. And Shawn felt like, that Bret really didn't, he felt that Bret was kind of being like the Hulk Hogan's and, the Andre the Giants, the old timers, and try to very traditional, and how, when Michaels, he wants to do something different and kind of steer away and do something different, a little bit more entertaining. And Bret even also mentioned too of how the click, of how when Shawn, when Shawn won the title, he figured okay, he'll get into the program with Shawn, but when he came back, he started hearing things saying that Shawn is going to start doing some things with as champion, getting some stuff with Hunter, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and even X-Pac. And so, because of that, when Bret said he heard that, he said that he thought that was a little bit unfair, because pretty much it's Shawn, keeping all of his close friends and whatnot, in the spotlight, and and getting the money. He's just a circle, in his group and his clique, and how when Shawn was even a clique, and Shawn even admitted that that when he and Triple H and Hall and Nash and X-Pac, when they formed the clique and stuff, of how they did separate themselves from other wrestlers and things of that sort. And how Shawn became, started to become very arrogant and whatnot, and just be very obnoxious and things of that sort. And Bret even said of how this was, and leading up to the Montreal Screwjob thing, how Bret Hart mentioned how there was a time where he got a heads up word saying that, oh well, you're going to work into a program with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. And so Bret tells this to Shawn, and And Shawn, and he remembers Shawn telling him, well, okay, well, Bret was telling Shawn that we're going to work in a program at WrestleMania next year, and this was back in, like I said, this was like in early '97, it's like February of '97. He tells Shawn that we're going to work at WrestleMania next year or whatnot, and we'll let you know that I'll be more than happy to put you over and get you over and things of that sort. And Shawn, and he said, he says to Shawn, and he remembers Shawn telling him, well, that's great that you're going to do this for me, but just so I would never put you over or anything like that. I would never put you over on me. And so he remember Shawn saying that and walking out the door, and he said, that Robert Roode was with them, and I think he also mentioned Mr. Perfect, and Mr. Perfect was there with them as well, and how they just thought to themselves like, wow, I can't believe Shawn said that. And it was at that moment and at that time that Bret said to himself that he's not going to give his belt over to Shawn. He said because he felt that Shawn didn't deserve to be champion, if he's going to act this way. He didn't treat him with any respect or anything like that. And they're even leading up to that, they were cutting promos and stuff on each other, and they had this guideline or this thing where they would talk about each other in promos, but they would only attack the characters, not them themselves as a person. So when Bret would talk about Shawn, he would cut things on Shawn Michaels the wrestler, not Shawn Michaels the real life person, and vice versa. But he said he clearly remember an incident where he was supposed to say something about Shawn. His microphone in his ear had malfunctioned or something, and he couldn't remember the rest of his lines. And so because he couldn't remember the rest of his lines, he said something off the top of his head, and Shawn Michaels got upset because before they went on live, they had already talked about what was going to be said, what they were going to say to each other. But because of that malfunction, Bret had to come up with something on top of his head, and so because of that, Bret said unintentionally, he didn't mean to, mean anything by it, but he was just trying to make up time for, that they've lost, and so because of the whole misconception, Shawn Michaels took it completely out of hand and began to attack Bret, and start going, over the line, start crossing the line where he wasn't just attacking Bret Hart, the wrestler, but he was attacking Bret Hart, the person, talking about things, about Sonny and him having an affair, with Sonny and things of that sort. And Shawn Michaels admitted that, he did do that, and how, how that caused problems for Bret, and how Bret said, that he'd come back home and, his kids and his father would ask him, what are you doing, what's going on, with you and Sonny, is it true, and things of that sort, causing problems or whatever in this marriage. And Shawn, said that he admitted that. He said, he remembered, he was so pissed off, and things at Bret, that he would just talk about anything that moved, that Bret did. He, talk about it all out in the open. And so Bret talks about how with him and Vince, that he told Vince the incident of how, well, Shawn Michaels told me that he basically, he said, put a whole bunch of SHIT in my face, and telling me that, he won't do the same for me, what I would do for him. And Vince tells him, are you serious? And he says, yeah. He says, well, I'm going to bring Shawn into the office, and we're going to have a meeting, and you repeat the same story. You tell me the same story, word for word, but with Shawn. And he said, okay, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and get Shawn. He said, Vince brings Shawn in, and first thing Vince still says, and he says, we're going to give the belt to Shawn. And Bret says he remembers, starting to get, even more angry at Vince, more so than Shawn, because he remembers, like, you came here and told me, we're going to put the belt on Shawn. I just told you what Shawn did to me and how he disrespected me, and you said, okay. I repeat the same story in front of Shawn in his face, and you still agree to give Shawn the belt after what I told you, how he just disrespected me, one of your most valuable, workers, veteran, and how he said that really kind of pissed him off. and how Shawn said, he never really wanted to, and this is all leading up to Survivor Series in '97, saying how, he never wanted to be, the guy, to get his hands dirty or whatever. How, they tried, working it out and things like that, and Bret said he was so pissed off at Shawn that, he felt like, he told Vince a lot of times, I'm not giving the belt over to Shawn. I'll give it over to anybody else. He said it could be any place else. And it didn't have to be at, Canada, because he was at Canada. He said he could have dropped the belt to anyone else in Canada. It just could not have been Shawn. He said he even would have, forked the belt over the next night on Raw to Stone Cold Steve Austin. But he didn't want to give the belt and have Shawn get over on him. And from that, Shawn, just goes in and mentions of how, like I said, he never wanted to be that guy, that, it was Triple H, and he wasn't throwing Triple H under the bus, but he's just saying that, it was Triple H who was the one that said, if Bret does, F him, and, if Bret doesn't want to do business, then we'll do business for him. And, from that, they go into Bret Hart briefly about his WCW contract and how he felt, the WCW was really his darkest moments in his life or his career, really, and shortly after that, how he suffered a stroke, and from the stroke and losing his brother-in-law the same year, British Bulldog, how he just felt like, Bret said he felt like how his whole life just began to kind of, change, and he felt like, he was just so bitter during that whole time when he was in WCW, all the way up until the stroke, how he was just so bitter that he felt like, God always has to teach people a lesson, and he felt that, maybe the stroke that he had suffered was his lesson, to let go of all of that anger and animosity and sadness and stuff that he happened, during the whole thing in Montreal, and how he felt towards Vince and, in the company. So he felt more betrayed by the company and Vince, more than anything, was at Shawn. And so, and also goes into, Shawn saying of how, how he found Christ, and, how they, how this interview here, helped them, make peace with each other. They've already made peace, during the Monday Night Raw thing in January 4th, but how this interview helps them, to make even more, peace and, become friends again, and give them closure and whatnot. And just a whole bunch of other things too to get into of how, Bret said, when he first met Shawn, they were really good friends, and how that kind of, just separated and things of that sort. From that, how he would let Shawn meet his kids and, bring him into his family, to meet his family and everything else. So this is a very, very, very good documentary. Just the documentary alone. They have like I said, the second disc has some matches from both men's tag team and singles career, and then the third disc has their Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and when they reconcile with one another on the January 4th edition of Raw. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this is a very, very good documentary. To me, the best documentary that I said was ever produced by WWE was The Rise and Fall of ECW. I would easily put this to rival The Rise and Fall of ECW. I mean, it's that good. I rate this DVD a 9 out of 10. You have to get this. If for anybody who's a fan of Bret Hart like me, if you're a fan of Shawn Michaels, or you're a fan of just both men, or one or the other, you have to add this onto your collection. If you're not a fan of neither, but you like documentaries, things of just wrestlers in general, still I would recommend you pick this up. Like I said, I rate this a 9 out of 5. $20. Like I said, a very good interview. It's nothing like some documentary DVDs where things are kind of watered down, and they don't really get a lot of opened up and out in the air. This wasn't like that at all. This was very, I would say, very, very, very real for a documentary, especially coming from from the WWE. I think this is probably the most real felt documentary DVD that WWE has done. I mean, literally. And like I said, the rise and fall of ECW, I thought that was one of the best. I used to have to put this up there on top to rival the rise and fall of ECW as being one of the best documentary DVDs. Both men, like I said, give their honest thoughts and opinions about certain things. I think Bret Hart, hearing Bret Hart here compared to his Best Of DVD, I've learned to respect Bret Hart even the more. Just to hear how Bret expresses himself. To me, I think he expresses himself way better than Shawn in this DVD. Shawn kind of is a little bit scattered everywhere, but that's fine. Like I said, Shawn just doesn't express himself very well in this DVD. It's a little bit scattered, but just based on Bret, how Bret expresses himself, and how he felt towards the WWE, and how he felt honored to be the WWE champion and stuff. I mean, Bret is just the way Bret does business and how he felt as being a champion and everything else. He's everything that you would want. He's everything you would want your worker to be, and not even just in the wrestling profession, but if you're a boss in general and you have a company, the type of mannerisms and morals that Bret has is something that you would want, and honesty that Bret Hart has is something that you would want in your company. And just from a wrestling standpoint, he's something that his characteristics are things that you would want in a wrestler and in your world champion, which is something that's very hard to find and very rare, in the wrestling business, when you have a lot of wrestlers who are cutthroat, and push others down to put themselves up on top. Bret Hart, not like that at all. And of course, like I said, you have one of the best. Like I said, they couldn't get any better when they have Jim Ross himself, who's a darn good, not only commentator but wrestling journalist. To have him interview the two in an unscripted, real environment makes the documentary and the story even better. Like I said, I highly recommend this DVD for any wrestling fan. Like I said, if you're a Shawn Michaels fan, just a Shawn Michaels fan alone, if you're just a Bret Hart fan alone, like myself, or if you're a fan of both men, you have to pick this DVD up. If you enjoy good documentaries that doesn't seem watered down, or like they might not mention some things, or they hide things away, but you want like some real, like the real deal Holyfield type of thing, this is it right here. This is probably the most, like I said, heartfelt, real environment type feel documentary DVD that WWE I think has ever done. So I recommend you get this. I rate it a 9 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about this review. If you like it, then like it, thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and if you already have the DVD, let me know what you thought about it. So, peace out.